Alright, today I want to talk about something important, something I think is going to be really crucial, and well, the next 10 years of everyone's lives. I think it's pretty hard to sell what will happen. You know, there's more wars every day. They seem far away at the moment, but it's looking more likely that the war's going to get close to the West. The leaders of the world for the past 80 years never thought about this kind of thing happening. It's always safe. We've only known peace and prosperity in our area. We've always thought, oh yeah, there's wars in the Middle East, they're far away, so you kind of feel safe. You don't think that it's literally in front of you there's a war, because you're thousands of miles away from it, right? But I think that could change. I don't want this to be a scaremongering video or anything, but I think it's important to just be wary of where the current global order is. And it's kind of like a 1930s moment, I think, where we're seeing a change in the world order and how things were meant to be. Because all you have to do is just look around you. You just have to look and see where society's going in that sense. And it's not looking good, man. Nations that we've deemed as autocratic and authoritarian and anti-democracy, like China, Russia, Iran, these are all countries that we view as enemies. And while they are contradictory to our fundamental values, our Western values of liberal values, they do not allow their culture to be subverted, which I think is what's happening at the moment. It's an interesting war tactic covered by the book The Art of War by Sun Tzu, ancient book about the way of war. And subversion is essentially one of the ways in which you fight your enemy without actually fighting them. So you basically get the enemy to turn in on themselves, right? So that's the best way to engage in a war. It's just to fight them without them knowing they're at war, right? That's how you win. And I think maybe that's what's happening at the moment, but we don't realize it. There's quite a few things socially that are just normalized these days, right? Like degenerate behavior is just openly normalized, right? It's everywhere. You go onto any hip-hop song and it's commonly traversed in every song. Any rap song, everything, it's all there. Violence, gang violence, everything, it's everywhere, right? And it's normalized, it's totally normalized these days. You look at the music that was out in the 50s, 60s, there was nothing to do with the kind of violence and shootings of people, crude behavior, and often sexually violent behavior that was rappers talk about. And obviously there's female artists promoting just degeneracy, really, casual sex and everything, kind of going against fundamental values that were built on this nation and Western nations, based on Christian values of monogamous relationships, which I think have just fallen apart these days. Divorce rates up, birth rate going down, and you have a society that is becoming weaker and weaker by the day. And I don't know, it's hard to point your finger on who's done this or what it is, but there's definitely a turning point occurring. The US, military-wise, of course, they're still super dominant, but there's more and more powers gaining more and more power. Like the Chinese, they've got a pretty big army, pretty big population, second largest economy, but because of their allies, the US, China, Iran, Russia, collectively, they are a pretty powerful opponent of the West, right? And one of the biggest things, I'm learning about it right now in a book I'm reading, Changing World Order, but it basically talks about how the reserve currency is basically a fundamental way of deciding who has power in the world, right? So since the end of World War II, the world's all fucked up. Winners were US, basically US. They had the bomb. Russians didn't. So pre-Cold War, just those 5 years after the war, they established the Bretton Woods system. They established the financial institutions that we know of today, the World Bank, the IMF. Fundamentally were designed to make prosperous nations in the West. It was built biased to make the West better, and was undercovered by the fact that it would help third world countries recover and other nations recover from the war. But ultimately, it made the US dollar the reserve currency, which is crucial for any empire to solidify their power, is to ensure that the majority of the trading around the world occurs in the dollar, makes the dollar really strong, which makes their buying power super strong. And that's changing. US dollar purchasing power has dramatically decreased. And, you've got more and more countries joining groups that are not aligned with the West, or aligned with Western interests, like BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And they want to, abandon the US dollar as the reserve currency. They're starting to trade their oil in their own currencies, or the yen, or not the yen, the Chinese currency, or whatever. They're no longer using the US dollar. That's one aspect of the changing world order. But I think fundamentally it's society. I think it's a really crucial thing. I think because if you have a nation of weak men, which relates to a book that I read recently, called Hard Times Create Strong Men by Stefan Arnio. And it's quite a controversial book. It's quite conservative in its values. But it was interesting. It had some good points about how nations are built upon strong values. So basically the way the storyline goes is that you have hard times create strong men create weak times, and weak times create strong men, and the cycle repeats. And that's basically how the world works, right? Empires fall and collapse and rise, etc. And I'd say we're currently in a tipping point of we're in the weak times. We've had strong men create good times post World War II, prosperous times and stuff, and then we're now entering a period where it's not certain, and I don't know, there's a lot of warmongering going on, especially in the West at the moment. There's an article like last week. The UK was basically the UK general was quizzed on the UK's ability to be ready for war, given the stoking tensions across the world at the moment, right? And he said basically the UK's fucked, bro. They have old tech, they have barely any numbers, and to the point where they'd have to rely on conscription, right? And everyone was like, oh shit, we're gonna get conscripted. It's that genuinely could be reality. It genuinely could be a thing where in the next 10 years I could be conscripted along with every other male over the age of 18 in this country to fight a war that they didn't contribute towards, they didn't have an effect on. There's a war caused by people with stupid policies. Look at the sleaze of the government at the moment, the current Tory government. The sleaze of the government, right? It's full of weak men. And it's not to say that Labour are going to be better or anything. They're probably going to come into power, but they'll be exactly the same. They'll just fuck around. So I think fundamentally we have a society of weak men, which allows it to be prone to invasion by strong men. And all the information that you read, right? It's something I've actually been deep in recently. I don't want to be some conspiracy theory guy, but as much as we'd like to think we live in a free country, a lot of the information that we read is actually pretty censored. And there's a lot of things that people don't want you to know about, especially the US government, of course. There's been a couple famous leaks of people exposing US government spying on, for example, the NSA reading all people's information and stuff, right? It's something that doesn't want to be known about, and if you talk about it, you'll be a conspiracy theorist, blah, 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 blah. But it's any strong nation has to control information. That's how they keep order, and that's how they keep people not to revolt, right? It's standard. That's just how nations work, right? You have to control the information. As much as we like to think we live in a free country, it's free, much freer than Russia and China, because those are very, very much more stricter. But I don't know. I think it's just important to understand how everything's working, how social media is disbursing certain information on certain topics like Israel-Gaza war. There's a lot of controversy about the way the algorithm is promoting stuff on TikTok. I mean, TikTok's fucked up, bro. The Chinese have TikTok, right? ByteDance owns they bought Musical.ly and then made TikTok. It's the same company, right? And so what they did was, allegedly in China, their algorithm of TikTok is basically super educational videos, videos on science, maths, those kind of things. And that's the domestic version they have, right? And then you look at the Western version, or the basically outside of China version of TikTok, and it's just fucked, right? Pointless, stupid posts of, I don't know, memes or some bullshit, but mostly degenerate behavior, especially of younger children doing provocative things. And it's all normalized. And, you know, you just have to look at the difference between the media that you'd see in this country versus another country to think that's not normal. Like, you know, monogamous relationships are kind of a thing of the past these days, you know, the whole university experience. Like, you know, just spread yourself loosely, you know, it just, and after that, so it's causing so many problems. I mean, that's a whole other issue in itself, but like how casual sex revolution, which is a huge problem in itself. But all of these problems ultimately contribute to a weak society, prone to invasion, prone to complacency, prone to poor decision making, leading into, well, wars that no one agreed to apart from a select few. And then that nation ultimately gets conquered because they're full of weak people. Like, in this country, everyone vapes. More so up north, but literally, you go anywhere around 12 to like 18, and people just casually vape. They're just sucking on something that's giving them like a nice flavour. And that's it. That's people. Like, they're just fucking robots, bro. They just use it. They scroll on TikTok and they suck on their vape, bro. That's all they do. And especially like food, for example. And that's another thing of society, right? The food in this country is, especially probably like in my school, for example, all the food that they serve is hyper processed and cooked in things like seed oils that are not good for you, and other things like literally, like if I want to go and eat something, a break, either the portion size is a different thing. I just like to eat better food, but minus that, the fact that it's super expensive. I mean, I'm going on to too many things here. Right, food. Okay, you got seed oils. They're really bad for you, and it's all of these seed foods. So you got seed oils. You got sugars, fake sugars, processed food, right? And a lot of these companies that manipulate the food market, they pay off the scientists. Again, I'm gonna sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's all there. The US health agency was paid off. I don't remember what it was, but you can look it up. There's a US it's like to do with sugar, I think. They basically paid off Harvard scientists to say that, oh yeah, sugar's good for you, sugar's bad for you, or salt's bad for you, something like that. I should really know my facts, to be honest, before I say them, but the point is, there's a lot of bad things that occur, and you shouldn't believe exactly what you see straight away. You should look into it more. That's something that I've been starting to do more. If I don't literally believe something because they're an authority figure or because they just say something, you have to really pull the information apart and look at who made it, who's their agendas behind it, etc., those kind of things. But that's another thing. But yeah, food's fucked up, obesity going up, so you got a nation with weak values, physically weak people, so they're not going to the gym and stuff, and so then all that results in is a society that doesn't function well. And yeah, I just think over the next 10 years it's really going to get bad. Well, I say really going to get bad. It could not as well. That's the thing, I really don't know. But like, if you ask someone like 5-10 years ago, they'd be like, it could be good, but it's more and more so looking like it's not going to look good. So yeah, just, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about this. There's not really any actions or tips to be made, but I think you should just be more wary of the information that you read and consume, and be more open to the fact that there are agendas behind certain players and moves in this world. And yeah, who knows?